Well, hello, God's house. That was weak. All right. Yeah, God's house in the house. All right. Hey, hell. Are you guys ready for an exciting time? All right. Hello, online people. We're so glad that you chose to tune in with us tonight. We're extremely excited to have Jarod and Tammy Allen here from Oklahoma. And they are, you want to tune in tonight and you want to tune in tomorrow because Jarod is preaching tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. So they're going to do it tonight. And I'm so excited that they're going to lead tonight. They're going to lead tonight. It's going to be awesome. Tammy's coming in. All right. So I want to introduce you guys, Jarod and Tammy, if you'd come up. Most of you know who they are. That's so weak. There you go. Oh, there you go. So this is Jarod and this is Tammy, and they're married. They go together. Anyway, they are going to lead tonight. Oh, your phone looks like my phone.
With your face?
No, just this one. Anyway, thank you for being online. Thank you guys for being here, and have a wonderful time. There you go.
Thank you. Okay. Love transforms. I've been trying to transform her for years, and it has not. I mean, all the love I can muster.
Yeah.
Not true. Not true. She's had to love me through so much. Okay, so tonight we don't want to go through a big long teaching as much as we want to go into encounter, because we hope we're going to lead you in some guided stuff that will be fun, and I guarantee you God's going to speak to you. That's how confident I am of it. That is, if you're capable of hearing, which you are. You just got to attach to it. So I want to first of all say I have really enjoyed everyone who's given input and led these Beyond the Horizon events. They've just been incredible. Love it. Lexus stole my thunder. Like, everything I would share, she shared. So, and really incredible. She did a great job doing that. Good job. So I don't have to say anything, because what she said is what I would have said. So now you'll have to go back and watch it now. But just kidding. Okay, so where to go? I purposely didn't plan on saying anything, because I just wanted to see what God had to say. And I just wanted to just let life speak. I wanted to let it emerge how it was going to emerge. And, the interesting, thing about encounters is the quickest way to shift you from old patterns, from old ways of being, is to encounter God. It's the best way, because not only do you meet God, but you also meet your true self. There's a reality. I've preached this, and other people have written about it and preached it. In fact, it's a very old idea. It goes back to a lot of the early mystics and some of the early church fathers. Even John Calvin, I'm not a fan of his theology, but even John Calvin understood this. To fully know God, you have to know yourself. To know yourself, you have to know God. So they're inseparable. So the anthropological question of who am I, and then the theological question is who is God, are inseparable. You find one, you find the other. They're both interlinked with each other, which is why encounters are so important, because not only are you encountering God, you're encountering yourself in different ways. So there's something we understand about ourselves energetically, and that is we tend to replicate the same frequency, the same energy of our past yesterdays. And what we have to find is ways of coming out of the old frequencies and change the frequencies. And some of the quickest and best ways of doing that is to go into moments where you encounter something powerful and it changes something. And a lot of times it's subtle and you won't even detect it at first. And that's the thing you have to be careful of. It's like, it's not really doing much. You don't know the accumulative change that's happening, because this stuff builds over time. And then sometimes there's those encounters where something is very specific but profound, and it shifts you out of old ways of being very quickly. And I love those moments. I've had those moments. I'll tell you a couple. One time, I was in my 20s, way back there, back in the old days, back when we probably didn't even have cell phones, if I had to guess. I don't remember. But anyways, I was studying. I was in college, and I was studying for something. I was up early, and all of a sudden, I felt the presence of God come into the room, and I knew that God wanted to do something. So I closed my eyes, and I went within myself. And all of a sudden, he showed me this image. And what he showed me is he showed me as a baby in a womb. And so I was in the womb, right? And what I remember is hearing from the outside all the negativity, all the words of rejection and voices. And I realized that was, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I understood and recognized that was my environment in the womb. There was chaos, and there was rejection, and there was fear. There was things happening outside of me that was attempting to embed within me, even in the womb, which was weird because I had obviously I have no recollection of that, except for what God showed me. But what was weird is how it was trying to even at that early age come within my consciousness: rejection, fear, abandonment. Those things that we deal with later, it seems like as adults, we're coming out of those things, and you wonder, where did this rejection? I've seen toddlers function out of rejection. You're thinking, how did they learn that? How they learned it is some of these things are coming very early before they even have conscious awareness that they're being rejected, if that makes sense. And so then what I heard in that, when I saw that vision, I saw the vision, God was in the womb with me. And he was speaking life over me in the womb. And then I heard the scripture come, I formed you in your mother's womb. And I realized how he formed me by speaking over me. God's creative word, he was speaking over me. My purpose, my destiny. I'm getting chill bumps thinking about it because it was so personal to me. And for whatever reason, now I can't say I come out of that vision, that encounter, just absolutely transformed and just like, I'm never going to face rejection again. But something shifted inside of me. Something shifted. For whatever reason, God decided to do it right then, right at that moment, and it helped me. And I've had encounters that exposed my belief system about God. For example, I was going into an encounter one time, and someone was leading me in it, is what was happening. And they asked me, it says, okay, do you see the Father? And maybe she said Jesus, I'm not sure. And I said, yes. And the person said, how do you see them? And I said, I see him standing at a distance with his arms crossed, with a disappointing look. And it never occurred to me at that moment, I don't know why, it would now, it never occurred to me that wasn't God. And when she said, Jarod, that's not God, all of a sudden that image went, and it was gone. But what it exposed is something that I wasn't aware of inside of me, that there was even something unconscious of how I believed God to be toward me was distant, his arms folded, kind of aloof and very uninterested in me. And as a matter of fact, very disappointed. And so when I saw that, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been living out of that my entire life, feeling like I'm not measuring up, feeling like Father is disappointed in me. And when in that encounter, see, somebody can tell me that. You know what I mean? This is the difference of encounter and just knowledge. Somebody can tell you those things, and they're just going to go into your mind. That's great, because that's the starting point. You got to have knowledge. Knowledge is very important. I would never take that away. But it's not near as important as an encounter with the truth, because then that's yours. That's not somebody you just agreed, And I wonder about that sometimes, and myself included, when I hear people preach and I agree with their theology, and because I agree with their theology, I believe it. That's not the transformation. This may be a starting point because it's a seed, but it's not necessarily the transformation, because it has to go much, much more deeper than that. And so I think part of these encounters is taking the things that we're preaching. I mean, the things that Sheila's preaching is amazing, but it's going to fill you up full of just trying to understand the concepts and trying to understand. And if you're not careful, then it becomes that thing that separates you inside again. You have to do these encounters, because these encounters is where you experience the truth of what she's saying, and then it becomes integrated into your being as who you are now. Does that make sense? Like, it's so important. Like, these things you can't just bypass. So there is something happening on the planet. Everybody, you can feel it. And it is reforming our theology. Our theology is getting better because we have come into enough encounters that the old way of viewing God and thinking about God literally does not make sense anymore. See, one of the things that shifted me when I started understanding God in love, God of love, a lot of things that I believed no longer made sense to me. And they couldn't hang on to me. In fact, they started formulating a lot of questions about certain theologies that I could never grasp. So when I say something's happening on the planet, that's happening. But you know, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm some prophet or here. I'm not trying to sound special, although I am pretty special. Anyways. But you guys have heard me say this before. In 2012, I'm sitting at my mother-in-law's, of all place. You know, whatever. Can you hear God in such a place? I'm kidding. I love my mother-in-law. She's like my mother, actually. It's just funny. You know what? I'm going to act like my old preacher. When me and Darren had a preacher, we had a pastor that he and I shared at one time, and he said, you know what the Cadillac, your Cadillac with your mother-in-law in it going over the cliff is? Mixed feelings. I'm kidding. It's just crazy jokes. Okay, dad jokes mostly. All right. But in 2012, I'm sitting in my mother-in-law's, my father-in-law's too at the time, and I'm just meditating, and all of a sudden God comes in the room and he starts to speak to me, and he says to me, consciousness on the planet is shifting. And I've told you this before, I didn't use that language, consciousness. It wasn't a part of my vocabulary. It wasn't a part of, so to hear that really kind of like, what? And so it led me on a journey to start to understand a lot of what that means. Now, what I don't want you to think is I don't want you to think that consciousness, the word consciousness, is a New Age idea. New Age has picked up on that word. They use it. I have no problem with it. I hope they use more of it. I don't care. Consciousness is a neuroscience word. It comes from neurology. It comes from the neurological understanding. Where does consciousness come from? Do you understand what I mean by consciousness? So when I say consciousness, it is the stream of awareness that comes into your field of experience. Meaning, if you think about your thoughts right now, your thoughts are coming in and out of your experience, right? You've had many different thoughts since sitting here. Think about it. You've had tons of thoughts. Every time I've mentioned something, you maybe had a thought, maybe you connected with it, and it's come in your field of experience. But the one thing that doesn't change is your field of experience. And that stream of experience, if you think about it, has never changed. You think it changes when you go to sleep, but it doesn't. It doesn't. You go to sleep, but that field of experience continues on, and you wake up back in it, and then thought starts formulating, popping in and out of your mind and popping in and out your experience. And the experience of consciousness is different than mind-based activity. This was huge for me. This was huge for me because what it began to teach me is I can disconnect from the mental activity that produces more ego and I could connect with something that's more primal, something that is more experiential, and that would be my consciousness. You all have it. Now, there's in neuroscience, there's what they call the hard question of consciousness. Here's the hard question, or at least to my understanding, okay? Those watching online go, that's not the hard question. Okay, then maybe I got it wrong. But here's what I think the hard question is. Does consciousness emerge from the brain? Or is consciousness something that already exists that the brain is just a mechanism to detect? Yeah. So those who are materialists, those who don't believe in the spirit realm, those who don't believe in a dimension of spirit, believes that consciousness emerges from brain. Because they'll say, well, when you die, your brain dies and you stop being conscious. Do we? How do they know that? From our tradition, from our Christian tradition, that's not at all what happens. Maybe you become hyper real. I don't know if you guys have ever read his book, and he may be a quack for all I know, but he's a guy named, his name is Eben Alexander. And he's a neuroscientist who taught at Harvard. And he was a surgeon, operates on brains. He's part of the teaching faculty at Harvard. And he basically died. He contracted in, I believe it was Africa, some sort of brain encephalitis that basically took his brain completely offline, and it was soaking basically in his skull in pus. Okay, from a neuroscience standpoint, he should not have had any activity going on, and he didn't. Like, they could detect there was nothing going on. He had less than 12% chance of recovering, and that even dropped down to a single digit. Okay, and during that time, he said he went to a place, and when he went there, not only was he conscious, but he was hyper-conscious. In other words, without that filter of the brain getting in the way, all of a sudden he was aware on levels that was beyond explanation. It was unexplicable, as they say. He could detect 363 degrees. He could communicate without talking, just telepathically. All he felt was a place of peace and love. The vibration of love was so overwhelming, he said. Okay, so he explains all this, and here's the interesting thing. This guy was not a Christian. I don't know, that just blew some of you. He went to hell. He should have went to hell, right? Okay, well, I don't get to decide that. Yeah, in fact, yeah, well, he would have called himself like a nominal Christian, like he would go on Easter. But he said he didn't believe in it. And here's the other thing. As a neuroscientist, he always believed what the standard belief was by neuroscientists, that consciousness comes from the brain. That's my point in bringing this up. When he come out of that and actually healed and came back to normal life existence, it so wrecked his paradigm. So now he no longer says consciousness itself does not emerge from the brain. Consciousness is primal. It is the ultimate reality. It is ultimate reality. And the brain is simply a mechanism to funnel consciousness to us. Now, what does that mean? When I say funnel, I'm using that as a metaphor. I don't know how it works. Like, geez, I'm not a brain scientist. Okay. But what he was trying to communicate is, here's the big thing. Instead of the brain creating consciousness, the brain was actually narrowing consciousness so that we could experience it as a human. When he was offline in the brain, it no longer narrowed consciousness. He was experiencing full consciousness. I kind of believe that's God. Okay, all right. Well, good thing there's only about 100-something online listening, okay? Don't pass this around. I told you I was spitballing. Now I'm saying way more than I feel vulnerable. Okay. Think of it like this. I'm not saying this is the way it is. Let's use it as a metaphor. That there is one consciousness in the universe, that the universe is even conscious. But there's a consciousness even beyond that we would call God. He's the ultimate observer, causing reality to collapse into the reality we experience. Okay, we're going into quantum physics here, right? Reality does not collapse into a reality unless it's observed. We know this, okay? He's the ultimate observer. Now, how I look at that when I think of it from that paradigm, one of the gifts and curses that I function out of is I'm able to see from different paradigms, and I get confused. That doesn't help anything, does it? Okay. So then I slip in and out of paradigms. I'm not in the Christian paradigm right now, per se, but I want to help us merge. Not New Age. I want us to merge a way of talking about these things in different language so that maybe we can experience it differently. So maybe we can just understand it. I'm not asking anybody to believe what I believe. I'd never ask you to do that. I am a Christian. I have asked Jesus into my heart. He's my Savior. I want to preface, I don't follow another God. Okay. But we're just talking about ways of thinking about these things, just for a minute. I'm not asking you to drop your, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or anything like that. They are a dimension in and of themselves. It is the bigger consciousness. It is the overall consciousness. And I think each one of our individual consciousness that we feel is separate from everyone else is actually connected to everyone else's and is tied to the ultimate consciousness. I think when you die, that consciousness does not die. I think that consciousness goes back to the source. But I also believe that it remains autonomous. And the reason I believe it remains autonomous and somewhat individuated, where you don't lose your sense of, for lack of better words, separateness, in the sense of, like, if Jarod dies, my consciousness goes back to Father and to the greater source without losing my sense of Jarod. And the reason I have hope for that is because of the Trinity. The Trinity is one consciousness in three manifestations in a relationship with each other, not three separate people. Now, if I've offended anyone, I ask your forgiveness right up front, okay? So I'm just talking about these things in different language for us to maybe experience it differently. So when we think about quantum physics for a second, so the way I understand they talk about it is that everything exists in a potentiality. It's in a wave form. It's actually a cloud. It's a cloud of, they used to think the old paradigm was that it circled around the nucleus kind of thing, but now they know that's not true. It's a cloud. But it functions in a wave form. All possibilities exist in that wave form. All possibilities. Every single potentiality is within that waveform. And some physicists will say all possibilities are already happening at once. Well, that'll just blow your mind right there. All possibilities are happening at one time. Now, what collapses something from a wave to a particle form to create what we know as our reality requires an observer. And so therefore, the energy from which you observe determines the type of collapsing that happens into reality. So think about this. If I'm feeling my old emotions, and I'm thinking my old thoughts that I think from the past, and I'm observing in my life, oftentimes what I'm just collapsing into reality is my same old reality. Right? And so then what we want to have is a different energy to create a different reality, which will require you to feel the thing that you're hoping changes before it happens. So this is what gets us all off. We are literally ran by our circumstances all the time. So whatever my circumstances are to me, it dictates the energy in which I function my life, which determines what I'm creating more of. So I'm over here worried about finances and lack. I have that energy of needing, wanting, wishing I had. All the quantum field can do is react to that as if though that's my reality. Are you understanding? Now, so I'm not telling you to play mind games, but what I am telling you is and, you know, the Joe Dispenza stuff really goes into all this. Joe Dispenza talks about how you have to have an elevated emotion. The emotion is sort of like the key that turns it all. I hate to say that because that sounds so anti-spiritual, but the dimension of spirit is actually reacting to that energy. Now, let me take it back to Scripture. Jesus, whenever he was traveling with his disciples, I think he was going to Jerusalem, and he saw the fig tree, and he cursed that fig tree, and they moved on. And so then they come back through, and Jesus, or Peter said, Jesus, that tree you cursed is dead. And Jesus said, have the faith of God. And he says, have the faith of God. First of all, it's not your faith. It's a consciousness of God. When he said have faith of God, the faith of God, he's saying have the perspective or consciousness of Father. And then he's going on and he says, whatsoever you desire. What is desire? An emotion. Whatsoever you desire, believe you receive, and it will happen. So what I hear him saying in that, if we take it into that paradigm that we're talking about, is once you see what Father wants to do in your life, I'm not telling you to make up a reality like, I want to be a millionaire, that's what I desire, and I'm trying to create that. That might work for you, but the real thing is this. When Father starts showing you your future, and he starts showing you aspects of yourself he wants to unlock, when he starts to show you, dimensions of reality in which you've not experienced, but he wants you to experience, that's the seed, the faith he's talking about, the consciousness of Father. This is his perspective. Now, I can desire that, align my emotions with what he's saying to me, and then reality will begin to happen. But he goes on to say, whoever, if you're offended at anybody, forgive them. Why? Because you can't have what Father wants you to have and the desire while your heart, the place of creation, is wrong. Your energy's all wrong. The energy is wrong. It's a lower vibration. So you can have all those things in order, but miss that element of keeping your own heart in a place where it can co-create with that, with Father who wants to co-create with you. And then all of a sudden, you're not experiencing that breakthrough. And I'm not telling you to go on a witch hunt. God will show you. I'm talking about what Jesus told his disciples. He's like, if you want to forgive me, if you want to be released from what? From that energetic lower state of being. When you read it's like, oh, Father's not going to forgive you unless you forgive others. Forgiveness is not about holding something against somebody always. Forgiveness sometimes is that which has you bound. And if you want released from what has you bound, you have to release in order to release yourself. Does that make sense? So, I'm saying all that to say I have no idea why I'm saying it. But I wanted us to think about that because when we talk about ascensions and we talk about, going beyond the horizon, we are talking about ascending. We're talking about going someplace. But here's what we're not talking about. You're not leaving the room with your body. What you have to understand is that there are dimensions within yourself that you're connecting to. And by doing that, that's what's shifting and transforming you. And so if you can go within, you can, and if you can do some of the meditation practices that Karuna was talking about one night, and why that's important. Let me tell you why that's important. Because when you are able to go, as I said earlier, connect to consciousness within yourself, the consciousness you experience outside of your mind. Your mind is just mental activity, literally thinking that has been handed down from you from ancients of time. Think about this. Everything that we think and how we view the world, everything has been handed down to us. Everything you believe to be true, someone told you it was true, or you engaged with it in some way that helps you reinforce that. But the point being is it's not just your thoughts you're thinking. These are ancient things that have been passed down to us. But once we disconnect from that and are able to observe, and we're in the observer role, you're actually loosening up the energetic field that it's producing. The energetic bind that it has you, you're loosening it up so that you're not in it for a moment. And if you can get outside of it for a moment, it diffuses the old energy. When I say diffuses it, it puts it in a neutral state. It neutralizes it. And that's why we want to be able to do that, because at that point, you are now in the best possibility to co-create with God, because you've stepped out of the old energy for a moment. That makes sense? I said I wasn't going to talk long. So that's what we want to do tonight. Flow states? She asks, is that what you call flow? Yes, I think so. That's where you step out and you're just now functioning at a different level. Probably so, if I had to guess.
What you observe, you can change. If you can't observe it, you can't change it. So if you're not observing something, it's not going to change. So that's why meditation is so important, and encountering is so important. God has given us new and different language because he's bringing transformation. And that's the big thing, is he's bringing transformation. Jarod asked me to talk about true self and false self. So a true self is your self found in God, okay? And a false self is the things that we avoid, okay? The things in ourselves that we want to avoid. The behavior that we don't like about ourselves. The things that we deny about ourselves. The things that we find ourselves doing that we don't like. You know, the feelings that we have that we don't like that we're feeling, okay? Those are all a part of a false self, okay? And they're there for us to observe so that we can change it. So to deny darkness is to create more of it. But to go into your darkness is where you can transform it. Okay? And so that's the journey I've been on, is going into that. I want to read you guys something. See it. I don't have my glasses up here. Christian spirituality involves acknowledging, your sole purpose in life is to become love. Okay? That's your purpose. It's all of our purposes. The thing that we struggle with is loving ourselves. And so I want you to keep that in mind as I'm reading this, okay? Christian spirituality involves acknowledging all parts of ourselves, exposing them to God's love, and letting Him weave them into the new person He is making. To do this, we must be willing to welcome these ignored parts as full members of the family of self, giving them space at the family table, and slowly allowing them to be softened and healed by love and integrated into the whole person we are becoming. So it's about integrating those things, those parts of ourselves that we don't like. Okay, it's about integrating those things. So we're going to do a meditation with you guys. And hopefully we're going to go there, all right? So you're in charge of your own meditation. You're in charge. You're in control. So allow yourself to just encounter and experience whatever God wants to do. and remember that you're in control. So, anyway, we're going to go there.
Yeah. All right. So what she just said is going to make sense in this meditation because that's part of where we're going. I was tempted, but since we are quickly running out of time, I was tempted. Okay. Are you guys familiar with breathing techniques? Breathing techniques? Yeah. Alexis explained that really well the other day when she talked about how we have an autonomic nervous system that has two branches to it, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And the autonomic nervous system controls pretty much everything that happens in our automatic processes such as breathing, digesting food, those kinds of things that are important. Heartbeat, sleep rhythms, those kind of things. And when a person is experiencing anxiety, for example, it's because their nervous system's off. And the quickest way to hack the nervous system is to do breath work. Because it's an autonomic response, you're kind of reversing the process. Why would I say that? Why is that important? Because one of the best ways to engage in the present moment, which is consciousness, is by doing breath work and then meditation, okay? So I'm not going to do that. I just feel like we'll just go into the meditation. I'll leave that out there. Maybe we'll do it again another time because I was going to take y'all into a breath work that would, I promise you, when you're done with it, you'll be so centered you won't have any thoughts. Probably because you're about to pass out. So I'm not going to go there. So we'll do that. We'll save that for another time. We'll do that another time. So I do want to do this. I want us to get comfortable because here we go. You're about to experience God. If we want to take the lights down just a little, we'll have people a little more comfortable. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to get comfortable. If you feel comfortable doing that, I want you to close your eyes. Everybody at home, get in a comfortable position. You're going to want to do this. Don't just be an observer. We want you to be a participant. I want us to take a few deep breaths all the way up. Pause for 2 seconds, all the way out. Do it again. We're going to do 2 more, all the way up. One more. Now I want you to just notice any thought that's emerging. Rather than engaging that thought, I want you to disidentify with it. I want you to just let it pass. Like a cloud in the sky, I want you to just let it pass. Maybe there's a sensation in your body. You're not fixating on that. You're just noticing it. You're going to let yourself come to a still place. You're getting in between the gaps of thought and the quietness between those thoughts. And you're literally just engaging in conscious awareness. If you catch yourself clinging to a thought, an image, or that self-talk is just talking in your head, you're just observing it. You're not fighting it. You're not fighting any thought. You're just observing, watching it. Let it pass through. Let it go through. Breathe it through. Don't forget to breathe. Now I want to take you on a journey. I want you to notice yourself in the forest. You're in the forest. And you're sitting at the base of a very large tree with really large branches. You can hear the trickle of water from some stream at the distance. You can smell that the air is very clean and clear and fresh. Some fragrance of flowers even comes to your nostrils, to your sense of smell. There is a slight breeze that just touches your face, like it's just kissing it. You're sitting at the base of that tree. You're barefooted. Your feet feels the ground beneath you, the grass. It's during the daytime because the sun is beaming through the trees and you can see the trees glistening from the sunlight, the leaves. And I want you to see yourself stand up because you sense you need to go someplace. You know you need to go on this journey. It's pulling you. You can feel the intensity building that I need to take this path. And when you look to the right of you, what you will notice is a small beaded path where it looks like many people or many things, or animals had tracked through the forest with a little bit of tall grass on the edges, but the beaded path is clear. And as you start to walk up to that path, you're excited about taking this path. A little bit nervous because you don't know where it's going to lead you, but you need to know. And as you step on the path, you feel the coolness of the ground beneath your feet and toes. You can feel yourself grounding to earth. And all of a sudden, you feel a sense of love toward the earth because the earth has supported you here for so long and is giving you everything you need on this dimension, on the earth dimension, to survive. So now you start to take your walk down this path. You don't know what you're going to see. You just know that there's something in it for you. And as you keep walking, and you keep walking, you realize it's not far before you recognize something different. There's a stream ahead, and you can hear the sound of the water running through the stream. And there's different kind of life around this stream. It's very active. Everything lives around the water. But right in front of you, to your surprise, there's a wooden bridge. And this wooden bridge is made with wooden planks. And you're standing at the edge of that bridge. And you didn't even notice this until you looked up. But ahead of you is a person in white linen. It startles you for a second, but you're thinking, I need to find out what this is. You don't have any fear. What you have is a draw, something pulling you, a curiosity maybe, a desire perhaps, but you need to know. And as the person standing in white linen is on the other side of the river, in front of the bridge, you start to take your step forward. You can feel the wooden planks under your feet. The planks are smooth. It's solid. And you're thankful because you don't like the bridges that are made of rope. And as you come to the other side, the person in white linen introduces themselves. You're going to ask them who they are, and they're going to tell you. And this person tells you, I'm here to guide you. I'll be your guide for the rest of the journey. So without any hesitation, you follow the guide because the path goes further. And after walking for several minutes, your curiosity is just bubbling within you. And the guide can almost detect your thoughts and starts to answer some of your questions, but refuses to answer all of them because he wants you to discover it. And at the end of this path is a very old gate. And it leads to a place, but you can't see the place because there's now a mist and a fog that is disrupting your field of vision in front of you. But you know you just have to follow the guide. And as you get to where he's taking you, what's standing in front of you is a very old, ancient door. You don't know how old this door is, but you can tell because it's like it has history. It's like it's talking to you. This door is an ancient door, and it has so much history to it. The guide tells you, I can't open this door for you. You will have to open it. And you reach for the old handle on the door. And you open it. And as you step into the room, you can feel the majesty and the majestic feeling of being in the presence and in the environment of a very high frequency. And as you walk in and you start to look around, what you will notice is that the ceilings are very, very high from this very beautiful marble floor. And the ceilings go, well, you can't even see the end of it really, but they're layers and levels, balconies of shelves with millions of scrolls neatly organized in their place. Scroll after scroll, information, profound insight. It's almost like it has a life of its own in the room. You can feel it has a story to tell. You're feeling the awe and amazement. And your guide leads you to the center of the room where there is 2 chairs, each on the other side of a small round table. They're like leather wingback chairs. And the guide offers you to sit at the chair. And the table comes up about stomach high in front of you. And as you look down, you notice in the center of that table is a scroll. And you know that scroll is important to you. that scroll is somehow tied to you, to your very existence. And when you look up, someone had entered the room and sat across from you. But to your amazement, it was like looking in a mirror, because it's you. It's your higher self. And you're sitting there looking at you, this wise, profound you. Something slips into the room. You have no idea how she came in. But as you're sitting there across from yourself, like looking in a mirror, only you can see the settledness in this person. You can see yourself beaming with love and peace, wisdom. You don't know how she came in, but then there's now a very tall woman with long blonde hair that comes down maybe to her feet even. You don't know who she is, but you can detect she's very profound and ancient. Her movements are subtle, overwhelmingly graceful. When she moves, it almost brings you to tears, because her moves are subtle and graceful but powerful. And she's just remaining in the background, walking, observing what's happening in front of you, observing this moment. She's walking a circle around and around, and all you feel from her is profound love and acceptance. And her desire is for you. And as you're sitting there, noticing your higher self, the higher self takes the scroll, and the higher self opens the scroll. And in the scroll it reads, "These are the life and times of you." Now, this self is going to read to you your scroll. All you have to do is just yield. Don't feel fear. Don't feel pressure. Simply surrender. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to hear the words.
Okay, now you're going to ask this person that's in the room with you what she wants you to do with the scroll. because you're about to leave that room. So now you're going to walk towards the door, the ancient door. You're going to open it, and now you're going to shut it. And you're going to walk back out into nature. And as you walk back on the bridge, back on the trail, I want you to now look to the left. And there's a trap door. I want you to make your way to that trap door. As you get to the trap door, there's been a gift that your higher self has left you. On a hook, there's a cloak. And I want you to put it on. And there's a candle that your higher self left you. I want you to light that candle. I want you to go to the trap door, and I want you to open it. You can either step inside the trap door, or you can invite whoever is behind the trap door to come out where you are. Or if you feel the freedom to, you can walk inside. As you walk inside the trap door, as you're looking in the shadow, what do you see? What part do you see or thing? And I want you to ask whatever it is you're seeing, ask it what its name is. The shadow part of you. Ask it what its name is. And if you don't know the name, I want you to look at it and come up with a name. And now I want you to offer love. I want you to offer love, kindness, forgiveness, whatever emotion that you can extend to this shadow part. I want you to thank it for what it has done for you in the past, but that it's no longer needed. You no longer need this. I want you to offer it love and compassion. And as you're loving on it and offering compassion to this part of you, it just starts to disintegrate. The love that you're extending to it, and you're thanking it for what it has done for you in the past, but that you no longer need it. It's no longer what you need in your life. I want you just to see it just start to just disintegrate and just leave. And now I want you to walk back out side of the trap door. You're going to hang your cloak up. You're going to put the candle back where you found it. And you're going to walk back to nature, to the beautiful forest. Just to allow that love, that unconditional love that you just encountered, to just fully embrace you. And now when you're ready, I want you to just feel your feet on the floor. Feel your fingers and your toes. And when you're ready, take a deep breath. And out. Open your eyes.
Okay. Okay, for those of you who didn't fall asleep, so easy to do. What did you experience? Just curious. If there was a lot of places we left open-ended for you to experience. I'm curious what that was like for you. Is there anybody who would like to share that we could get an idea? And online, we'd like for you to type it in the YouTube chat part so we can see that. Anybody feel comfortable enough to share anything? You, Laura? You're looking at me like you wished I'd call on you.
I was not. I was wishing you weren't going to call on me. These are very vulnerable places. In
case you need it.
Okay. How far you want to go with this? Oh, dear heavens. Okay. So when she said, or he said, when Jarod began to talk about us going into the forest is a very comfortable place for me. And I spent time in the forest before. And the trees were very tall, and the bark was, I could feel the bark under my hand of the tree, and the pine trees were very, very tall. And I could smell, I loved it when you said, can you smell the scent of pine, because the area is so fresh. And I walked down the path, and I fight this, so I hope this ministers to someone online, because I struggle with this sometimes. I'm a writer, and I can get in the middle of another world, and it's as easy as can be. But when we're doing this, I struggle. Yeah, and I mean, I'm like, if you give me some keys to type on while we're doing this, I will be there in a second. But, anyway. So when I saw the bridge, this is how my mind works. When I saw the bridge, he's saying one thing, and I'm seeing the bridge. I have 5 examples of a bridge going on in my head. Does the planks look like this? I know. I mean, it's all. I'm going through the list of the kind of bridge I need to build at that moment. So I finally come to before I can even cross. I finally found the planks I love that are the rough home planks and the bridge with the logs. And I finally I can walk across this one. And so the person at the other side, I see him, and oh my gosh, his name is Peter. I'm like, good for you, And so I put my arm around him, and y'all got to know, like, when they're telling me you got to take your time and see the pebbles and the grass on either side, I've already run way ahead. I'm skipping, I'm running, and then you're like, feel the pebbles under your feet. And I'm like, oh, I got to go back. Now I got to go back. So, I don't know if y'all do this, but so I'm back feeling the pebbles, fine. I was always a person, when I was little, I'd rather run than walk. So I'm like making myself feel the pebbles. Okay, so that's kind of, I'm doing this gymnastics, mental gymnastics. I'm like, this is really tough, Get to the other side of the bridge, and when we get to the door, I'm thinking it's going to be, Ancient of Days doors, but it's kind of bling bling. So I'm seeing a door with, the front of it has gold and these little crystals hanging there, and it's all elaborate. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll just see what I see, Inside, this really spoke to me because God has given me imagery before of a huge library with scrolls. It's very meaningful to me, so I'm loving it. The marble floor, I see the tall ceilings. When he says it's big, man. The walls are out. There's crisscross bins all on the wall and thousands of scrolls. And so here's the table. And I sit down, and I'm trying to envision myself. I'm just going to be real with you. I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying not to see me the way I look right now because I needed to cut my bangs today. So, I'm trying to be in the realm, right? But I am thinking about my bangs. I'm like, Laura, stop. Just look at Laura. Okay. Just look at her. Just sit there. It's okay. And I see the woman come in, and she is tall, man. She's got the long, beautiful hair. And I'm thinking, it's wisdom, because you're talking about wisdom. And her name in the Bible, the Hebrew word is Sophia. So she is there. We have spread the scroll out on the table. And she and I, my higher self, my whatever, higher self. I love that term. Yeah, who needs her bangs cut, but she's not concerned with that. And so they are planning over my scroll. They're pointing like a map. They're talking about it. And so I'm like, just observe. I'm trying to hear, but I can't hear exactly what they're saying. And now I'm worried. I'm wanting to cry because I can't hear what they're saying. I want to know what they're talking about. And I'm like, I'm not learning anything here. And so, or am I? Thank you. So I'm sorry. This isn't like this big, perfectly done thing. And so it's time to leave. You're leading us through that. I'm taking the scroll. I am not leaving without my scroll. That sucker is rolled up and it is under my arm. It is going with me out that door, down the path, across the bridge. And I'm not very happy about the trap door. I got to tell you, I got my scroll. I don't know what's happening, but I got it. And I'm okay. I'm going to stop. I'm going to see the cloak. It's leather. I'm like in the Lord of the Rings, right? I've got the leather cloak. I've got the candle. And I go in the door. And now it's Chronicles of Narnia. I'm in the house with the badgers. So it's like the tree, right? I'm inside the tree. And it's all dark, and I have a tendency, I know this is supposed to be a place for your dark self, but it's looking kind of fun to me. They've got this lovely glowing light with the candles, and they're all sitting around the table with their tankards or whatever, And I'm like, the badger's there. And then I'm having to look at this shadow self. I'm like, dang it. I don't want to see the shadow self. I don't want to look. She's in the shadows. She's observing everything. Everybody's having a good time. Just let me hang in the shadows. I'm not. She's doing great, Tammy. And you want me to love her and talk to her and get a name. I'm like, I do not want to know what your name is. You're doing great over here. Why do I have to do this? So you're telling me to get her name. I'm like, I don't know your name. I may not, I don't know. I'm listening. It's stupid and all that. And so all of a sudden, when you're saying to love her, I'm like, I'm not feeling nothing. I'm not feeling no love for her, you know. And all of a sudden, she starts, whoever this, whatever, because I'm not seeing very clearly, but have you ever seen a catcher when somebody's slain in the spirit, if you all have been to those churches, which we are and have been, how the catchers let them go down gently on the floor. So I'm letting her down gently. She's going to the floor. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I heard her name was Baby. I'm like, that is just stupid. But I heard the name Baby, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, I just don't know what to think. And so I'm trying to love her. I'm having a real hard time. And finally you say, it's time to go. I'm like, thank God it's time to go. And so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to tell her goodbye, but I'm still struggling, Tammy. I'm not liking that whole scenario. And so I'd rather be in the shadows watching everybody have fun, you know, but it's not fun. That's my personality. I'm like, I'm all for the fun. But so she's down. And so I'm leaving. I'm so happy to hang that cloak up. I'm happy to blow that candle out. I've got my scroll. You know, and off I go, and I'm thinking about it as I'm leaving. I'm thinking I'm leaving her behind. And that's what I'm supposed to do. And so it was a mixture of good and bad and ugly.
That's it. That's awesome. Love it. It's awesome. Love it.
You missed it. So a little understanding about that. I think part of coming into true self, that, you know, we talk about true self, it can be very vague, you know, we talk about that stuff. You have to be able to love all aspects of yourself in order to do that. In order to integrate it, you have to love it. You have to get to know it. You have to know those aspects of yourself. There's a school of thought that we all have aspects of ourself that we don't like. And at some point in our lives, we relegate those to the dark places. We don't want to face those. We don't want to look at those. We like to see ourselves in a better light. So we put those to the side. But the problem is when they're relegated to the darkness like that, it's called the shadow side. And they go unmet or unintegrated within yourself as they continue to play out in your behaviors and patterns and cycles that you have no idea why I keep going through this cycle. Why does this pattern keep happening? Because there's an element of ourselves that we really don't want to face because it's so ugly to us or off-putting to us and it's so rejected. We can't go there. So the meditation is more about going down in there, because I did this meditation earlier today, and when I went down into that trap door, and I walked in there, I saw myself up against the wall, couched down, but it was a much smaller version of myself. It was like a pale, I'm pretty pasty, but I mean pale and real scrawny, short even, version of myself that was up against the wall. And I asked him, I said, "What is your name?" He said, "I'm Fear." And when I started having compassion for this thing, whatever it was, this part of me, this fear, when I asked it, I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "Control." And I started to feel compassion toward it, and then all of a sudden it puffed itself up like you ever seen a cat that when it's scared, it's like puffs itself up, it's kind of like that. It puffed itself up like that, and it became all of a sudden self-serving. And all of a sudden I felt this yuck, like, no wonder I put you down here. Like, it was off-putting. It was, all of a sudden it was fearful, but it wanted, wanted control. And then it went back to its normal self. And in that, I was able to experience compassion for myself in that state. And in a sense, whenever you're able to love even the worst part of you, identify it, tell the truth of it, not hide it, not, because we're either relegated to image management or we can become image bearers. We're here on this earth to be image bearers, to bear the image of Father. But if we don't come into wholeness in some ways, all we're left with is pretending. We're left with the mask we wear and the roles we play, and we're left with trying to be something for everyone else, but we're really not. And so part of that work is integrating those ugly parts to some extent, taking it out of the fear, I command you to go in the name of Jesus, you got to go. I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about there's an aspect of me that is terribly afraid, and I need to identify that. Because if I don't identify that, then I have to be a hypocrite and pretend I'm not. I'd rather just admit I'm afraid. And when I'm afraid, I want to control, because that's the only way I can control that fear. And so by embracing that, not hiding it, but loving it at the same time, because I'm going to be released of this. The only way it can be released is love. And so that was the point of that last part of the meditation, was to go there. Notice that in yours, Laura, there was all these other things you would rather use your imagination to pay attention to so that you don't have to see the person in the corner. That's the message you were supposed to see. And maybe you'll get to go back there and spend a little more time there to.
Just kind of to further the conversation, when you said, and I've done this before with myself, where I felt like I knew there was a place that I needed to love myself in a certain area or whatever. But in this instance, when you said you need to love her, there was nothing in me to love her. Yeah. I was resisting even seeing her. It wasn't even a human form.
Right.
So when you said to love, I couldn't go there. So you want to speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a deeper work is what this is about. It's a deeper work. It's a deeper work, and it's where true healing is going to begin to happen. And it's going to change you in a way that you'll just have compassion for yourself in ways that you have not had before. And it will go into other people, where you will have compassion for other people that experience that same stuff. They don't want to look at this stuff. None of us want to look at ourselves. None of us want to look at the things that we want to avoid. And so we just put the mask on and we just go about our lives, right? But that's the place where God's trying to bring a deeper work, a maturing. And that's where this is changing for all of us, And it can be uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
So to speak to your experience, when I went into my meditation in the beginning, I also felt repulsed. Like, I think there's a reason why that's the shadow self. You don't like it. You don't want to face it. You struggle with it. The feeling of compassion for myself came later had we probably given you more time, that may have emerged. You may have been able to see you for the person you are that needs loved, kind of thing.
Go back to it on your own time and do it.
I mean, I don't know how much time we got. I don't want to take all your. If anybody else has something they would share, you don't have to share the whole story, but any aspect of the story that really meant something to you, that really stood out, come on up, hon. We'll just take a few minutes to talk about these things. But you got to stick this in your face.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to the last part of it. So when you said to see the shadow, I saw my grandma. Yeah. Actually, my grandma brought me up, so I. Okay, I'm lost. So I saw my grandma. She held my hand. My grandma actually passed away when I was little. She brought me up, like I said, about 30 plus years ago now. So, but then when you said to see the shadow there, but I couldn't see the shadow because I saw my grandma. And all I could see was love. Yeah. And the aspect of us, when you said again to get the scroll, so at that point, I couldn't even give it a name, whatever shadow I was seeing, because I couldn't see it. It was all love. So, but then when I got my scroll, okay, the lady that you were talking about, it was, I felt it was the Holy Spirit nurturing me through the process.
That's right. That's it.
Yeah, so I eventually got my scroll, and I tried to walk out of that room. The shadow, even though looking at my grandma, I couldn't come up with a word. A word just popped up which says not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think
That's
it's
so good. Thank you. Wow. I love how y'all catch the imagery of the woman. I was hoping you would. Okay, very good. Everybody's having unique experiences. Anybody else want to share? Come on up. Okay, I just called 3 people up. Boy, I can see I'm going to have to do better moderation. Okay, I was looking at her, then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here. Is that okay? Come on up.
Okay, I won't go into everything, but when I was sitting at the round table looking at my higher self, of course, she didn't have a weight issue, so I was really glad to see that. And, she was looking really good, and that confidence that she was saying, just, it was coming through. And then the lady with the long blonde hair, it was tall, was definitely love circling around. And the discussion of my scroll was, you are intelligent, you are worthy, you are loved, and a bunch of other things. And I was feeling power, from that. And then when you said, what do you do with the scroll? What is to do? And they said, eat that scroll. And so then that all came inside of me. And so then I left that room and went outside. And then my trap door was a trap door on the floor. And so it was like a wood, like crosswire like this, where you could almost kind of like a little prison in there. And so when you said a cloak, I thought, oh, where's the cloak going to be? And then there was just like a pole right there with the cloak and then the candlestick. And I thought, okay, so it was almost like a Lord of the Rings kind of, hood, brown. And between Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, with the the dark and then the light, these eyes, beating out. So anyways, I put that on. I got my candlestick, and so then I squat down and I open up the trap door, and it's stairs going down. And then you ask, what do you see? And I'm like, well, I see stone, because there was light on the stone. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure what that's all about, but what do you see there? And then I'm like, I see stone. What? And then you said the shadow, what's in the shadow? And so then I look, and it's like one of these Star Wars characters, with the hood, in the dark and the eyes. And so I thought, okay, I guess that's what I'm supposed to see. And I get closer, and it was like this is like a cartoonish, like we've all seen him, like the bunny face, that we see with cartoons, and looks like a little grandma, with the glasses, she's got an apron on, but a bunny face, and so looking really cute. But her eyes were really sad, and I was like, well, what is your name? And my name is depression. My name is sadness. And so when you said, love her, I'm like, love her? Okay, I can do this now. I can just love her. I can love her. And there was a couple other things that came up, too. And so I was kind of like circling around her, with the same love. And so just circling and doing all of this. And then it was kind of like another, one of these Harry Potter movies. I mean, I don't know, kind of like combination of everything. And so then our, like Wizard of Oz. And then, all of a sudden it's like, like crumbling, and there's just the cloak, and it's down on the ground. And the glasses were there. I thought, what's up with the glasses, which, of course, glasses. And then the glasses kind of like foil, they just kind of shriveled up. And so then I thought, ooh, can't see anymore. That's really good. That's really good. So then I thought, okay. And you said, all right, so now it's time to get out of there. I'm like, well, this is good. Because, I wasn't afraid to go down there because, I just eaten my scroll, so I was feeling pretty good. And it was kind of like a wafer, like a Twix, really thin, one of those thin cookie kind of things. Almost. No, well, that would have been good. But almost like, what you have like for communion, but it's those kind of crackers that are real thin, and they don't really have a lot of taste. But anyway, so I was munching on that. But anyways, so then I, climbed back up the stairs, put the, the cloak up and the light, and my forest my bridge was really smooth, like, somebody actually made it and sanded it and put Varathane on it, so it's all nice and smooth and everything. And so my forest was redwoods, because I'm from California, and like, the nice soft sand and everything, and I'm like, this is really a great day. So
awesome. Thank you. To kind of, you're coming up next, to kind of give an idea. Star Wars keeps coming up. So Star Wars has a shadow scene as well. If you've ever seen The Empire Strikes Back, I'll just quickly talk about it. Luke Skywalker is training with Yoda on Dagobah system. Go watch it. And he's training to be a Jedi. And he feels the compulsion to go help his friends because he can sense they're in trouble. And Yoda's telling him, you're not ready, because if you go unready, this could be bad. So he goes into this vision. You don't know it's a vision as a viewer. You're watching this take place. And he feels compelled to go into this cave, and he goes down in this cave, and he senses the darkness, the dark side there. And all of a sudden, you see Darth Vader pop up in the image, and his lightsaber opened, the red lightsaber, and all of a sudden they start fighting, and Luke wins. He cuts Darth Vader's head off, and it rolls off. And then you just see the Darth Vader mask, and all of a sudden it disintegrates, and the head in the helmet is Luke himself. So he was facing the aspect of himself who could become that. Right. It was within him too. Right. I think that's kind of the way the shadow works in a sense.
You're bringing darkness into light.
Yeah.
Is what's happening. You're bringing darkness into light. So the thing that you said, I'm not enough, it will no longer have power over you now, because you're aware of that now. Do you see what I'm saying? Now you know that's in you, that you have a tendency maybe to feel that you're not enough. And so now that dispels that. And now it's no longer going to have that power over you, like you didn't know it was there until now. You know what I mean? So now awareness has come. And so now it will not have that power for you. And so there's a new awareness you got.
Yeah.
So you just got a jewel and a treasure right there.
You ready?
I was hoping to not have to stand at the front, but it makes sense with broadcasting it. So I went to a forest that I visited in Ireland because in my mind it's just like the quintessential forest of like, no wonder fairy tales came from there because they would be believable in that forest. But the library looked like the Mines of Moria. That was the tall, so I'm thankful for all these wonderful descriptive writers we have who help us learn to use our imaginations. And at first, I did identify the woman with the long blonde hair as Wisdom, and she was really good friends with my higher self, and I liked that. They knew each other well, and then about halfway through, I thought maybe she's Holy Spirit. You know, that was a neat aspect too. And when they opened my scroll, I was kind of hoping to hear some specifics about things I've been thinking I wanted to do, and it was a broader picture, and it was a little bit intimidating, a little bit empowering, like things you're called to do and to be in the world today. And when I left, I kind of put the scroll inside myself. And so I'm feeling pretty charged or excited. So when I go to the trap door, I have no hesitation to jump down at all. You know, no hesitation to go in. And I put on the cloak, and I'm like, oh, this cloak is like putting on righteousness. And I pick up the candle, and I'm like, this is illuminating truth. Anyways, so I go down in, and I think I'm going in to rescue somebody else. That's why I'm so charged to go in. I think I'm going down to rescue someone else. And so there's this pitiful little tied up person, like in a dungeon scenario, and I'm thinking I'm going in as rescuer, and then you start saying, this is maybe the dark part of yourself. And I was like, wait a minute, no. like I don't want to, I don't really want or know how to love a dark part of myself. It's, I can have tons of compassion on someone else, but this is something I just want gone. I don't know that I want to acknowledge that it's part of me. Anyways, so that was, I just thought was interesting to see that in myself and to realize that and what's extra unique about it is I've had a couple dreams recently where I was confronted with something very undesirable in my nature that I realized and so it was like a part of your character that you're like, this is still a problem. I didn't realize it was a problem, but I really am reacting from this part of myself. And so I got to see it again tonight. But, so I don't know how to love that yet. I don't even know how to reconcile with that with myself yet, but I think it was definitely an eye-opening experience to see what I'm up against or what I'm going to get to walk in next. So, yeah.
Good job. Way to go. Awesome. You ready? Man, good experiences. I'm learning from you guys.
Hi. I'm like, am I close enough? Is that fine? Okay. So I'm like, hi. I'm just kidding. So I'm Heather. So if you don't know me, I'm Heather. Hi. So we walked. I love the forest, number one. I love being around trees and nature because I feel that's where, God created nature first before he created man. We came from nature. So that's where I feel that God is the most. So when I was walking to the bridge, before you said that when you said there was somebody there, immediately, instead of it being somebody else, it was actually me. So I walked and I was like, okay, hi. And I was like, okay. And then, right, hey, you. So she was like, when you get to the door, the beautiful door, you're like, I can't go with you. And I'm like, but aren't you me? Like, why can't you go with me? Okay. So I walk in this beautiful door and I see my future, well, kind of like future self, but my higher self. And I see that and I'm just like, and she's just beaming and smiling and just being like, you can just see the love and the the difference that it is of who I am and who she is. And like the lady I like also saw, as soon as I heard there was a lady walking around, I was like, that's the Holy Spirit. Like you have to, see that. And so with the scroll, I'm gonna kind of keep that to myself, but basically I was like walking away, and I was like, wait, do you want me to do something with this? Like, am I taking this? Am I leaving it here? And they're like, we just want you to live by it. Just live by the scroll. And I was like, okay, live by the scroll. So fast forward to the trap door. It looked like the door that goes to like the cellars, or like the basement. And I've never seen that except for in movies recently. WandaVision, okay. So, we were walking. I was walking down. I grabbed the cloak. I grabbed the candle, and I was like, I don't like dark places, so I don't want to walk in. So I'm gonna walk in anyways. And I walk in, and I see a person or two like chained, but it's like their chains are highlighted, and it says like fear, abandonment, not feeling loved, like all of that. And then I see the shadow or like dark parts of myself. And it is just a shadow. I don't really see who it is. I don't get to hear like what their name is until I'm kind of quiet and I'm just looking at them. And then I hear, hold on, I had to look up the word. It's not in my vocabulary. I'm easy. So it's optation of self. That's what it was. So optation means the action of wishing, a wish, a desire. So basically the wishing and the desire of self. So wishing something more of myself. And when you said to embrace this person, or just talk to this person and ask what it wants, I immediately didn't even ask what it wants. I just literally just went, like say their head's here, I literally just went and hugged them and said, you are loved. Thank you for teaching me what you taught me. I'm growing from you. And yeah. So.
Awesome. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Way to go. Man, some good stuff comes out of it. Yeah. All right. We probably have time for one or two more. If y'all want to, anybody want to, Alexa?
So I'm not going to share like what I saw, but just wanted to give you a thank you for the revelation that you guys let us in. When I looked at the shadow, and then of course I was like irritated with the shadow. And yeah, it's just super natural to feel that way. But when you were saying like, thank it for what it's done for you, that was a huge revelation for me. And at that moment, I was just like, hey, you were just trying to survive, and you were helping me. So I'm irritated with you because you were trying to help me. Well, that's just rude. You know what I mean? So I got compassion in that moment, and I was just like, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't need your services anymore. I was like, and I was kind of joking with the shadow. I was like, "You're fired," but I love you because you were helping preserve myself. But it's over, and it's time to just move on. And so I really felt like that shadow received that compassion and that appreciation. I know about what you guys are talking about. Anytime I see something in myself I don't like and I cringe, I immediately stop and I'm like, okay, it's okay. Let's, so I try to talk myself through that. But the encounter, you guys leading us through the encounter was pretty awesome because I got to experience appreciating it. So thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, great shoes. Matches your shirt. Coloring wise. One of the ways that a shadow, if you're unable to identify it, one of the ways that I've been able to identify it is it's one of the main things that causes us to project onto other people. So when you have a real intense experience towards somebody and you don't even know why, it's actually identifying something within yourself. So a lot of times we hate something we see in somebody else that is actually in us. and we don't want to face it, but it surfaces and we just hate it in them, you know. That's a projection. You know, Jesus says, hey, remove the log out of your eye before you're able to move the splinter out of your brother's eye. And what he's saying is the thing that is in your eye is affecting how you're seeing them. And oftentimes you're seeing yourself in them and you're experiencing it. And what I've noticed is if something of my issue is tapped and I feel the situation more emotional than what it's called for in that moment, I can be sure that my shadow has been triggered and I'm projecting in the situation and onto the situation. Projections keep you from actually seeing and experiencing the individual. You can now only interact with the judgment you have. You can't interact with the person. Yeah. So, you know, judge not lest you be judged is simply you're basically receiving into yourself the very thing you're putting out to somebody else. And it traps you. It traps you into states of being because you think it's them. And if you don't see that it's you, you're stuck. Anybody else before we end this thing, we hand this thing over to Monica? We got a what? Okay, pray and end it. Anybody else? One once, one twice, one 3 times. I always, those auctioneers, man, they're amazing. They can talk fast. Trista? No? She's giving me a no. That's your shadow. You need to come up. Appreciated your meditation last week. It was good. Okay, so nobody else. Not you losers over there, not going to say anything? I'm kidding. You guys aren't losers. I know you wanted to.
I felt like you kept looking at me.
I did.
That's
what everybody's saying.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick up from where I picked up the scroll. The scroll was permission to live from light, from a place of knowing, not just belief, but knowing. Because there's certain things we don't believe in that still affect us. And so when we have knowledge about those things, we can take action like what you are talking about. This stuff has actually been taught for thousands and thousands of years. And it is all connected to Christ. Humans had knowledge of all this before Christ was even here because it's free. It's freely given. And they just chose to freely receive it. And a lot of Christians reject this kind of stuff, and we're missing out. So anyway, I got the scroll, and the scroll was basically a mandate or an order, permission, like, I don't like the term legal, but kingdom permission to operate from a place of light, from a place of knowledge and true exposure. And so pick up the cloak, and the cloak was like almost like a fur cloak, but it wasn't produced from death. I mean, it wasn't like a dead animal. This was, maybe feathers from God, from his wings, something like that. It provided warmth for the cold space that I was going to enter, and the candle was a candle, and so nothing crazy about it. Yeah. Family Dollar special, nothing crazy. So I go into the trapdoor. My trapdoor was really similar to one of the people that talked about it. It was in the ground in the forest. I go into the trapdoor, and it's really just dirt walls. It's just like there's nothing special about the trapdoor itself, but the shadow was actually like a physical black hole, right? It was in a physical form, it had arms and legs and a head, but it was a void. It was just a black void. It was nothing, and it's confusion. And the original use for the word confusion is to mix or mingle what is not supposed to be mixed or mingled, like oil and water. They'll always be separate. So confusion is trying to combine what will never be like, which would be light and dark, which is ignorance and knowledge, stuff like that. And then I gave the scroll to this void, and it consumed it and then became light. So it became an embodiment of light to free itself from that willful ignorance. Because there's actually an old word, and it's called nescience, and it's actually without responsibility. Like, you're not expected to know. Ignorance is, I have the ability to know, but I'm afraid of the knowledge. I'm afraid of the truth. And so this black hole, this embodiment of a black hole, became the embodiment of knowledge and light and truth. And it reminds me of when Jesus turned the water into wine. He took what was natural and made it supernatural. He made it intoxicating.
Yes, good.
So,
Good. I think I have a word for you. Okay. What is your name?
David.
David. That's a good name. David, this is what I saw even when you walked up. What I heard was a teaching gift. You know, and then it came out in your language. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, that's just too simple, but that's what I heard. And what I saw is, I see you learning, I see you learning, I see you learning. And what I heard in that was, right now you're filling the cup. You're filling it up. You're filling up the container, so to speak. And there's going to come a time when, and here's the thing, you're a lot further down the road than what others have seen. You're further down the road of understanding than others have seen, because you've been in the background, and there's sort of like you haven't been brought to exposure yet, and that's okay, because there's a time for that. Sometimes you know before others know, and that's okay. The real question is, can you be patient in the midst of opportunity presenting itself? But what I do see is opportunity presenting itself. But I see you going to deeper learning. Like what I sensed, and you can just please weigh this out. Do not go do this because I tell you. I'm just kidding. So what I saw was a theological school. I saw but not just like you know how people can join these unaccredited theology schools and they get like a little diploma. And I saw you going into some deeper study, like some legit credibility kind of thing, because you have the mind for it. And you have the heart for it. Now, it may not be, and I don't know you personally, it may not be your personality to be social, but there's knowledge burning inside of you that when you start to stand up and talk, it starts to flow out of you. So maybe there's that introverted bent, but when you stand up, God's going to let it start to come out like a river, and it's going to start to come forth. But it's going to come forth in revelation, but a deep knowing. You already have this, but there's an ability to connect information with other information that makes other information deeper than what that information would be by itself. You know how to apply it, I guess is what I'm saying. So there's a wisdom to that. And so I just want to confirm that over you, David. And I just want to say over you, we bless that. Be all God's called you to be. Be all of it. There's no limitation. Whatever has come into your mind that tells you you're limited and you can't do it, understand that's the lie. There's something for you. And Father, we just want to confirm that. In Jesus' name, we bless him. Amen. Amen. Hey, brother. Go do you, man, because it's big. It's big. Pray us out of here.
God, we just thank you for tonight, God. God, we thank you, God, that wherever we go, God, if we go to the depths, you're there. If we go to the mountaintops, you're there. God, no matter where we go, you're present. And God, I just pray, God, that we just continue to walk out our healing, that we continue to encounter and experience, God, love and your grace and your kindness and all that you embody, God. God, I just release us tonight to just go and encounter even more as we go home tonight. That, God, we would just even chew on what we have experienced and encounter here tonight. God, that it truly bring transformation. God, that it changes. That, God, it releases us to be our true selves, our higher selves, God. God, the higher self of love. That, God, we embody it fully and completely. And that, God, it is love is what will transform us. And so, God, I just release that over us, and thank you for tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. And Facebook, YouTube, you're loved.